Hey everybody, uh, just thought I'd stop in and do a little video. I was in there, actually what I was doing, I was flipping the channels a while ago. And you see on TV all the time about the commercials for, where the man said he had a heart attack at age 57. And actually, I had my heart attack in January. And the medication that they're taking in these commercials, I take that too. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I had flipped through YouTube one night about signs of a heart attack, signs and symptoms of a heart attack. And most of them say the same thing, where they talk about the Hollywood heart attack. And that's where you grab the chest and you fall around and then you stumble over and you're dead. And it don't happen like that. And then they talk about all the other symptoms of a heart attack. Well, most of the symptoms of a heart attack I didn't have. I didn't have the pain in the arm. I didn't have any chest pain at all. I had, mine was, I became extremely weak. Just so weak that I literally could do nothing for myself. I could barely stand up, and I couldn't breathe. I was real short of breath, and that was probably the hardest part. And it was during the day that, during the time when we had the big snowstorm. And I couldn't lay down that evening. I just felt like I needed to lay down and sleep. But when I lay down, my breathing got worse. And so I had to literally sit on the edge of my couch with my ankles crisscrossed and put my forehead flat down in front of me on my coffee table. And that was the only way that I could breathe decently, but it was still hard to breathe. But I felt exhausted, and those were my symptoms: weakness, and I couldn't breathe. And I was like that during that evening, and then that night it stayed that way. And about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, then I basically knew what was going on because I started having pain in this jaw. They say jaw pain. Some people have jaw pain. I had jaw pain. I had it in this jaw. And so then my son called to check on me, and he was stranded at work at his job because of the snow. And then he called my daughter, and my daughter came down at like 4:30, about 5 o'clock in the morning, to my house and called 911. And when 911 got here, they took my blood pressure, and it was like 169 over 131, which is extremely outrageous. And I've never had a problem with blood pressure. So they took me to the hospital, and I was in ICU for 3 days, and then in my regular room for 2 days. I went to the hospital on a Sunday and came home on a Friday. But they wouldn't let me out of bed for 2 days. And they did a heart cath. And I was really, really afraid when they told me they were going to do that. But it really turned out to be, maybe I just had an extremely good doctor. But I felt nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. They do it while you're awake. And I watched them, I watched on the monitors and everything that they were doing. And that, I guess, was my biggest fear, that they were going to find a clot and I was going to have bypass surgery, because only like 2 months before this happened, I had this dream that I was in the hospital and that the doctor was telling my kids that I needed a triple bypass. And when I woke up from that dream, the Golden Girls was on, and that's when Rose Nylund had a heart attack and they had to do a triple bypass. So I was hearing that in my sleep, in my dream, but that still ran through my mind while I was laying there. And so when they did the heart cath, everything, as soon as he shot the dye in there, and I was watching it, of course, I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. I was just watching it happen. And they was all smiling, and they said that was great. It was wonderful, that my arteries were excellent, that I had no clots anywhere. And so the biggest thing that they had to figure out when I was in hospital was what caused me to have a heart attack. Because the thing that kept me in the CICU for so long was my blood pressure went from that 169 over 131 all the way down to like 70 over 40. And they couldn't bring my blood pressure back up. For 3 days, they couldn't get my blood pressure to come back up. And so they finally got it to come up a little bit. And I think on the day that I came home from the hospital, my blood pressure was reading like 96 over 70 something. And that's what it reads a lot of the time, still is. So, but since I've been out of the hospital, I'm on 3 different medications, and just the weakness, well, not weakness, but tiredness. And I know it's the medications that I'm on. It's like sometimes, most of the time, I just don't have the energy to do a whole lot. Every now and then I'll get a burst of energy, and I'll go through this house and I'll clean this and clean that and clean this. But a lot of times it takes everything in me to do something. Like, I live here alone. And it's not really that hard when you live alone to keep the house clean, but sometimes it just takes everything in me to wash a plate after I get done eating. But anyway, I'm not really complaining because, the doctor, of course, is going to ask me, well, why didn't you come in yesterday when you started having these symptoms? And I told him, I said, I was just exhausted. I said, I felt exhausted. I was weak. I was tired. I said, I just wanted to get some sleep. I felt like if I could lay down and get some sleep, I would feel better. And he told me that it was a blessing that I was not able to get any sleep, because he told me if I had laid down and went to sleep, I would not have woken up. And so I guess that was a blessing in disguise that I went through all that, but whatever. Anyway, so, but the hardest thing about the heart cath for me was having to lay flat on my back for 4 hours. And the first hour of it was in the recovery room. And of course they had the nurse over here, and she applied pressure onto the bandage for 30 minutes, then checked it 30 minutes more. Then they took me back to ICU and put the packs and everything on there, and I had to lay flat on my back for 3 more hours. And I just thought I was going to die during that time. Because I can't lay still. And the second thing was I had to lay flat. And so that meant I couldn't drink anything. I drank water constantly. I couldn't have a drink of water. And I couldn't drink it laying down. Of course, somebody could have gave it to me with a straw, but they told me if you cough, then I got to apply strong pressure to the bandage. And I thought, oh Lord, I'm going to lay him bleed to death now. But that was the hardest part of the whole thing, was having to lay flat on my back. But I never got sore or anything after that. I never even felt where they made the incision to do the heart cath. I never felt any of that. And so I guess I was lucky in that respect. And that made me think about all this I'm thinking about today is because my Aunt Faye went and had to go have a heart cath done today, and I'm waiting to hear what they found out about her. She's been in the hospital a couple of times, and they thought that she had mild heart attacks, and so we're waiting to see how she's doing. And I know my brother had to have a triple bypass in '05, I think in September of '05. So, but my doctor says I'm the classic. I have every classic symptom of stress-induced heart attack. Stress is not only emotional stress, but it can be physical stress. And so that was the day that I had to shovel all that snow off my Jeep, and that was a huge snow down here. And you hear about people all the time having a heart attack because weather-related heart attacks in the snow. And I believe that's what caused mine. But I do know that when they was doing an EKG, they had told me, and not a lot of people know this, but you will now, that that was not my first heart attack. And the first one I had, I wasn't aware of what it was, and I didn't go to the hospital. I should have gone, and I knew when it was going on I should have gone. But it happened when I was at work, and I got real dizzy, and my heart was pounding, and I just never had anything like that happen to me before. And I had to leave work, and I had to come home, and I was real weak for a couple of days. But I went back to work, and during that time when I was at work, I was still sick, but I thought I had the flu. That's what I thought all that was. I thought I had the flu, but they can tell everything in all your tests. They pinpointed it and said, you've had a heart attack before. And that's when I had one. So now I'm on my 3 medications. I'm on my aspirin regimen. And I had to change I didn't really have to change my diet a whole lot. My biggest issue that the doctor had was salt. Oh man, you could put a salt lick on my plate. I loved salt so much. But I can have no salt. I can have no salt substitutes. And it's funny because you would think, you know, I knew this woman one time and she had a heart attack. Laverne, she had a heart attack, and she had to cut out all her salt, and she would eat baked potatoes without salt and everything. And I'm like, Laverne, I don't see how you do that. And she said that it was hard at first, but when she got used to it, you couldn't tell it didn't have salt because it tasted just like it did, you know, when you put salt on it. And that's true. Because now I can eat anything, and I don't need salt on anything. And now, you know, it's getting back to where it tastes like it used to. It tastes good to me. So I use Mrs. Dash. It's sodium free, and but well, of course, I haven't smoked since December of '04. I haven't had any alcohol at all this year, and basically the biggest thing I drink is the peach flavored water. God, I am so hooked on the peach flavored water, and that's what I got in here right now. And I drink my mocha latte. I'm hooked on mocha latte. I got to have one every evening. But anyway, I think I've rattled on long enough, and it's time for me to go make a mocha latte now, as a matter of fact. And so I just want to get on here and babble. And so until next time, bye-bye.